Well, greetings from Castle Goring from Aurora and me. Nikki is just beyond where Aurora is sitting, sleeping. So we're going to leave Mickey to slumber in peace. And I am going to plunge in, if Aurora will give me permission, by wishing everybody in America a very happy Thanksgiving Day, because I know it's a big day in the United States of America. And happy Thanksgiving Day to all of you. In the United Kingdom, we have something to be thankful for. Some bongo drums, if I can replicate them, since I can't bring my bongo drums here. Boop, boop, boop. Bongo drums have been beating. I received the most extraordinary information today from a very well-connected friend of mine who rang me up and said that I'll say she, I'm not going to say they, I'm going to say she, had some really interesting information to impart, that she had been told by some people pretty high up in the Liberal Democratic Party that Sadiq Khan is well known to be trying to overthrow Starmer to become Prime Minister. So we are going to have a very nice balance, because we will have had Rishi Sunak overthrowing Boris Johnson, and then we will have Sadiq Khan overthrowing two tiers care. That's the plan. That's the plot. Let us see if it comes off, because the last time that I was privy to such a plot was when I attended a dinner given by some friends of mine where Rishi was the guest of honour. This was in the November between the two COVIDs, whenever that was. And I took Mark Sykes with me as my +1, I think they call it nowadays, rather tacky expression, but we'll use it for shorthand purposes. And he sat beside one of the spooks, and when Mark said that Rishi looked as if he was Prime Ministerial material, the spook said, "Oh, it's not a matter of if, but when." They already had the plans well afoot to topple Boris, which they succeeded in doing. Unfortunately, there was a little slip-up. They had Liz Truss. Is Sadiq Khan going to have a little slip-up before he ends up being Prime Minister? Let's wait and see. It will be very interesting to see when he becomes Prime Minister, if he becomes Prime Minister, what other changes he's going to implement. Well, I don't know what you think, but I think, and there's plenty of space in Buckingham Palace's garden for at least a mosque. And since Sadiq Khan is so inclusive, are we going to have all the other religions represented as well? Or is he going to just narrow it down to his part of the electorate? Let's wait and see. But that's the news. Sadiq Khan is moving heaven and earth to topple the lawfully elected Prime Minister of this country, so that he will become Prime Minister. Andy Burnham, evidently not a chance, although of course they might have said the same thing about Liz Truss, and look what happened with her. So are we going to have a repetition I'm beginning to think that we should have the tale of 1,001 nights, don't you think? Something along those lines? Well, Rimsky-Korsakov did write Scheherazade. Let us see what Rishi #2 is going to write. Oh, sorry, Sir Sadiq Khan #1 is going to write. This country is really going to hell in a breadbasket. Linked, not ranked, USA says. Hi, Lady C from America. Hi, linked, not ranked, USA from Castle Goring. Did you see what's going on with Candace Owens and the Macrons allegedly putting a hit out on her? The French government? It's pretty wild. Love you. I did read about it. To answer this question, took a little listen as well. You know, anything is possible, not everything is probable. So much that is unlikely happens that I would hesitate to come down firmly on one side or the other. But I would say that of my personal experience with Candace Owens, incidentally, whom I've never met and whom I was perfectly prepared to like, and I certainly admire a lot of her vim and vigour and brightness and ability. The way she hijacked, for her own purposes, my interview with Dorothy Ottey over Kamala Harris's grandmother, Miss Burial, and the flagrant way in which she set about cutting me out, never giving me credit, doing everything to minimize me, trying to reach Dorothy, very, very resourceful she is. I could actually say almost a Meganian in her determination. Is this a likely story, or is this a likely story? Why would the Macrons put a hit out on Candace Owens? I mean, let's be reasonable and realistic for 2 minutes. Think about it. They will have achieved their objective in pretty much muzzling her, irrespective of the status of Madame Macron's birth. By suing, all they need to do is spin this out till the end of his presidency. Then they simply drop it and say, well, we're no longer president and first lady of France. It doesn't matter anymore. We're just going to ignore the rest of it and let Candace Owens believe what she wants. That's all they need to do. Why would they get rid of her? Seems very far-fetched to me. I could be wrong. I'm often wrong. I certainly could be wrong in this instance. I think the whole thing is extremely murky. I certainly think that if Candace Owens sincerely believes what she appears to believe, that I'm not going to criticise her for having gone hell for leather, because Macron's politics are despicable in many ways, And any way of shutting him down, insofar as I can see, is acceptable because both he and Brigitte knew when they were signing up for the presidency that they were to a large extent giving up an awful lot of their privacy and their rights to a private life. So I could also take the view that I think that Candace Owens' hobby horse really shouldn't be flogged to the extent it's being flogged by her and other journalists. But I'm not taking that point of view because I think if there is something there in the circumstances, it's fair game. So, insofar as her investigation of Madame Macron's identity is concerned, I certainly have no criticism where that's concerned, but I certainly think, are the Macrons really going to put out a hit on her? And then somebody is going to just very obligingly phone her up and say, oh, hello, Madame Farmer. This is the Elysee Palace calling. We are here to tell you that there is an it out on you. And Monsieur Macron, whichever one you want to say it is, has put out this it on you, and therefore your life is in great danger. Pity my flying pigs aren't available, otherwise they'd be whizzing for what it's worth. Val Spadaro says, Dear Lady C, could you talk about the beautiful piece of furniture you are leaning against in your videos? I have never seen anything like it. Looks antique. My prayers for your full recovery. Sincerely, Val. Thank you very much, Val. Yes, it's the bed head for a four-poster bed that I inherited from my aunt. It's the bed that I used to sleep when I used to stay with her when she was alive and living on Grand Cayman. This was my bed. And when my grandmother died and I inherited her house, then my aunt died and I inherited various stuff from her. I brought this bed back to France, and the bed that my aunt and uncle used to sleep in, which was also an antique mahogany four-poster, I put that in the guest bedroom in the house on Grand Cayman that I inherited. And I let the house out for a while. And then when I got possession of the house, lo and behold, they'd taken the bed. What can I tell you? So it was actually a better, in quotes, bed than this one. But this one is the one that had greater emotional significance for me. So, and this is what I sleep on. So it's a Jamaican mahogany antique four-poster. And you're seeing just a bit of the carved back. Lynn Lloyd says, Sure, the royal family doesn't have to produce anything. They do. The children cannot be in the line of succession without the proof. You're wrong. The children can be in the line of succession once the authorities are prevented, which on the face of it, with what seems to be a valid birth certificate. That constitutes proof. That's all the proof that's required. Proof of birth via registration of birth via Father Harold. That's all that was required. Now, let's not forget, Harry is married to one of the great legal brains of all time, Rachel Zane. And Rachel Zane will certainly know her way around all of the intricacies of any law that would stand in the way of herself and her ambitions. So, you're quite wrong there. The royal family do not need to produce anything. And what was produced was sufficient to get Archie, then Lily, in the line of succession. I've tried to emphasize before, and I'll emphasize again, we are a law-abiding country. We are governed by laws. Our governments and our heads of state and our representatives need to abide by the law. And some of them will sometimes use the law to their advantage to achieve their objectives. Simple as that. Ruby Cuba says. But if there were irregularities, consider that the Harkles have twice forced the royal family's hand by making their own early press releases, e.g., claiming prince and princess titles, which would make the royal family look bad if they were to then refute. The royal family prefers to avoid scandal and cover or find a quieter way to resolve later. I think that's a very reasonable and sensible and rational opinion to take. Can you imagine finding yourself in a situation that the royal family found itself in as a result of Meghan and Harry's shenanigans in terms of the birth of both of those children? Whether it is fish or fowl, on the face of it, the royal family stands to lose. Meghan set things up in such a way that no matter what the outcome would be, the royal family would have been declared by her complicit. Let's remember, she is the one, according to Buckingham Palace, who took it upon herself to amend Archie's birth certificate, and then, according to them, lied and said that they had made her do it. So, whether one scenario or another is accepted as factual, both those scenarios lead to the inevitable conclusion that Meghan has sucked the royal family into a scheme that they had no knowledge of initially, and they found themselves involved in. Let's leave it at that for the moment. Giuffres says, Dear Lady C, it has been reported that Virginia Giuffres' family is heiring for part of her estate. She died intestate, which baffles me. If I believed I was marked for assassination and had a large fortune, Andrew's alleged multi-millions, I would have made a will. She was savvy enough to make an if I die audio recording, but not a will protecting her children's future. Incomprehensible. not very incomprehensible if you realize that you are dealing with somebody who is extremely disturbed and not really thinking clearly about the best interests of supposed loved ones. Because let's remember, before she died, she not only threw her children and husband under the bus, but she threw her father under the bus as well, making accusations that she had never made before. I think I take a reasonably considered view of Virginia Giuffres' conduct. I think she was extremely disturbed. I suspect she was always disturbed. I'm not sure I can believe and rely upon anything she says, because her history shows that anything you believe, you would believe with great skepticism because there is a contradictory element to it as well. So that's putting aside the road she chose to travel down on more than one occasion, where she put, in my opinion, her desire for wealth and attention and public acclaim over the best interests of herself and her family. Let's remember there was an interim period between when she got married to Robert Giuffre and when Sharon Churchill came dangling all those big bucks to tempt her, when she had turned over a new leaf and was leading a perfectly conservative, respectable, desirable family life. Then she got back on the money-making hobby horse bandwagon. Look at me, I've been a great victim. Despite all the evidence to the contrary, by the way, that because let's remember she's being sued at the moment by somebody she defamed, and her sorry, Mickey's moving and rocking the camera. None of it surprises me. I would actually have been more surprised had she left a will. This way, she leaves greater confusion and greater mess. I think there's something very, very disturbing about Virginia Giuffre. And I've thought it all along. That doesn't mean I don't have compassion for her, but it does mean that my compassion is basically reserved primarily for her victims. Her victims. Let's be clear about who her victims really are. And I am including her children in that number. And let's not forget, her husband and her children had court orders out against her to protect themselves from her. Let's remember, next of kin is determined by the law. It doesn't matter to whom you're speaking or not speaking. It's the legal relationship that you have. And it's husband and children, then siblings and parents. I fail to see how her siblings can think save through greed and ambition, which seems to run pretty strongly in the Roberts family, it has to be said. that they can feel that they have any entitlement whatsoever to any of the money that she has obtained over the years. Let's leave it at that. And there's a second part to this question. Lady C, as I watch the morning news here in Australia, I'm astonished at the UK budget handed down by Rachel Reeves and the Labour government. Talk about screwing the working class. Talk about screwing everybody who works, anybody who makes any money. They're only interested in sucking money from people who make it to give it to those who don't, so that they will vote for them. That's what this is all about. Massive political gerrymandering. Let me continue. The tax on family farms will destroy generations of family farming. What do they care? They couldn't care less. I look back at Australian political history when the Governor-General, Crown appointed, basically dissolved our parliament and forced a general election because he believed the government wasn't functioning correctly. There was a voting deadlock. Hypothetically, what would have to happen for King Charles to indicate he wasn't happy with the current government's decisions? Is there any way a general election could be called in the UK ahead of the allocated time? No. This government has a massive majority. The electorate chose them, and the British people, like all other people who vote, need to understand they are responsible for their vote, and if they cock it up, they have only themselves to blame. And you can't blame the government and say, oh, I only did a protest vote. I didn't really mean it. I kept my fingers crossed. I mean, grow up. We are stuck with the government that we have because the British people voted them in. They should have thought with their heads instead of their whatever else they were thinking with before they voted for a government on a protest vote. The king can't do anything. We have a lawfully elected government that has a massive majority, and that by the look of it is going to end up with Sir Sadiq Khan at its head ultimately. Let's wait and see what happens there. Karen Bonner says, I absolutely appreciate that everyone has the right to their opinion, but many of us that live in the United States and have to live with the consequences of President Trump's policies understand that he does not care about the Ukraine or its people. His goal is much more personal. He wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize since Barack Obama won the prize. That is his only interest in ending the war. President Trump makes Meghan and Harry look like amateurs when it comes to grifting. I wish a speedy recovery for you and a Merry Christmas. Thank you very much, Karen Bonner. I hear what you're saying. I have to tell you, I'm utterly indifferent to the motivation of any leader. My ultimate concern is the effect of that leader's decisions and policies. Trump could want gold-plated Nobel Peace Prizes dipped in gold from the Oscars and blown up to the size of the Hollywood Bowl for all I care. If he achieves an end to the bloodbath, I say, who cares whether he gets the Nobel Peace Prize or not? Who cares what his motives are? It's the effect of his policies that will count and that should count. There's much about Trump that an awful lot of people quite rightly find disconcerting. Some of it, I have to say, I do not find as disconcerting as they do, because I do sort of understand. Oh, there, that's Mickey, sorry. I do sort of understand that they have concerns, and some of those concerns are valid, but that Trump is a bit of a maverick. And I also know enough about history and geopolitics to know that the most effective leaders are those who do not follow the rule book and play predictably, but play somewhat unpredictably. And Trump fancies himself a deal maker, as long as he's cutting the deals that, in my opinion, are good for us as a society. I'm all in favour of him succeeding. When he doesn't cut the deals that I would regard as desirable, I am in favour of him failing. I'm afraid I am not doctrinaire, and I am not going to be dogmatic. Too many people nowadays think that politics should be preached from the pulpit by clergymen. Well, it shouldn't. Politicians are not clergymen. Politicians have to and should, on occasion, lie and deceive to achieve their objectives and prevail against their adversaries and enemies. That's what good and responsible leadership is all about. Advancing the interests of your people. As simple as that. So, if Trump achieves peace in Ukraine and gets the Nobel Peace Prize, good for him. If he doesn't, I couldn't care less. That's his motivation. I couldn't care less. All I care about is that the war is brought to as speedy an end as possible, and that fewer people die than more people die. I've never been such a moralist that I believed that anybody's life was worth you being right and me being wrong. Sorry. Michelle Dillon says, Lady C, you probably already know this, but the Daily Fail ran a hopelessly inaccurate news story about your accident at the weekend. One of the gems this work of genius contained was their assertion that you were still in hospital, but by this point you'd been home for days. The comments section was full of Campbellistas correcting the facts spewed out by the Daily Fail report. But I think you will find one of the comments extremely interesting. It was from a person who claimed they also had a fall on the same step you did, and that they were very lucky not to have suffered the same horrible injury you have. I'm sure one of your sons can find this article for you and locate the comment. Or if you'd like, I can send you the link to the article via the Castle Goring website, as YouTube remove links. If in the unfortunate event you need to take court action, maybe this comment could form some independent evidence of a history of accidents in that room. Just a thought. Love to you all and wishing you a speedy recovery. Thank you very much for this, Michelle Dillon. Please send me the comment to the Castle Goring website and say that you have been in touch and I have asked you to send it. It will be very helpful. There is little doubt in my mind that the Soho Hotel will suppress any evidence of any possible, well, let's put it this way, anything that would be awkward for them. And I would love that. Thank you so much. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you all. I hope this has been of interest to you. Please keep the questions and comments coming in so I'll know what topics we should be speaking about. Okay, thank you. Take good care. Godspeed. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and hype? Hype. Thank you. I nearly said purge. Silly moi. Godspeed. Bye bye.